Welcome to The Hopeful Divorce. I'm Hope, your family law friend. After working in family law firms for many years and watching thousands of divorces play out, I've learned some things about what does and doesn't work, and I'm here to share. This post is from the Divorce Women subreddit. I left my marriage to live in a matrilocal household. I now feel more supported than ever. My marriage wasn't abusive in the traditional sense, but it was suffocating. I left everything behind except my child and the clothes on our backs. One night, looking at my husband playing video games while drowning in laundry, full-time work, dinner prep, and toddler tantrums, I realized I don't want to do this anymore. I moved back with my sisters and retired mother in my childhood home. It's small, but it's filled with peace and love. We argued a lot as children and sometimes as young adults. We have different personalities. We all reacted to the trauma of our childhood differently. My sisters chose not to date and start a family. Some of my other siblings and I did. And here, I am back with my family. There is a spreadsheet for groceries. There is a chore wheel with everyone assigned. The laundry room is clean. Everyone takes turns to spend time with my child. My child has less tantrums and his vocabulary is increasing every day. We are taking walks outside. I get to sit down and sew or crochet, knowing my child is playing or reading a book with one of his aunts or grandma nearby. I don't have to worry about funding the newest game or gaming system. I don't have to worry about having a separate home-cooked meal for my spouse who would rather eat fast food. The economic relief alone has changed my life. We split the property taxes, the utilities, the food. For the first time in my adult life, I actually have savings. I have the mental bandwidth to think about my own future again. My ex-husband tells his friends I'm crazy, and society tells me a broken marriage means a broken home. But looking around at my son interacting with his grandma and his aunts in the living room, I know the truth. My home isn't broken. It's finally whole. I now understand why my mother and grandmother never remarried after a divorce or becoming a widow. I am happier and I look forward to camping, traveling with my family, and showing my child new experiences, such as the learning about sand at the beach, airplane shows, cultural festivals, and more. These are things I would not have been able to do. My ex hated going outdoors and wanted us to leave our shades closed. My siblings' mother and I have very little money, but somehow the memories we have created are wholesome and memorable. My relatives and former friends tell me I am making a terrible mistake and starting a life that would ruin my child. But all I know is I'm happy. My ex was initially devastated and struggled with the divorce. Before I left, I made sure he was connected with a therapist, and thankfully, it seems he's doing better now. We are co-parenting, but given his current situation, caring for our toddler alone is really difficult for him. My son must have his father in his life, and my child gets to spend time with his dad when he wants to. I thought about the consequences of a separated family for years since the birth of my child, and I know that this is the best situation. I don't want my child to grow up in a home where there is no love between his parents. I might consider dating again someday, but I will only try when my child is an adult. I want to find a companion who has similar interests and drive to show up for our loved ones. I'm going to teach my child that he does not have to get married before he turns 30 and have kids. He doesn't have to have a monogamous relationship. He can love who he wants as long as he shows up for the people who love him, including if he has children. Thank you for reading. Oh, I love this post. It's not really a question, but I just love it, and I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about it because one of the things that happens often when people think that they want to get divorced is they go and talk to a lawyer, or they read online and learn about property division, and they learn about the math of divorce. And it's really daunting. Frankly, when you have two incomes going into one household, A lot of people can barely get by with that as it is. So to have two incomes going to two separate households, it's usually really hard. The amount of child support that one person has to pay, and sometimes the amount of spousal support, it's really a lot and very hard to survive if you have to pay that much. And the person who's receiving child support and spousal support sometimes, that person usually can barely get by. The reason they're getting that money is because they don't make nearly as much as the other person. So usually it's really hard for both people. And it's not unusual for people to think that they want to get divorced, go and talk to a lawyer and understand that what the math is going to be like and say, I guess I'm just going to live with it. And, there's a cost to that too. If you are really unhappy, and as this woman pointed out in her post, she doesn't want her child to think that you should have disdain for your partner. And, I don't know what was really happening in her marriage. We only have her side of it, but it sounds like they weren't very happy. It sounds like her husband spent most of his time playing video games and not wanting to leave the house. So it doesn't sound like it was very happy for him either. And so that's not a great environment for a child, but we often get stuck if you are that unhappy. And if you feel like you cannot work on it to make it change, then sometimes people get stuck in. So looking for a non-traditional path, you don't have to just get your own house that's completely separate. You can move in with family. Now, not everybody has family that they can move in with. They might not be, they might not live nearby. The people may not have, a good relationship with their family. Even if they were able to move in with them, they may feel that that person just, isn't a good fit to be around their child, or maybe that relative doesn't want to have a child in their house. Like these things, it's different for everybody's situation, but there are ways to make it work even when it doesn't seem obvious. I have seen situations where a woman moved in with another single mom and they shared household expenses. And so there were multiple kids and two moms, and they were sharing expenses because they both couldn't afford to have their own place. And it ended up working really well for them to get by. People can find all different ways, for creative housing. And you may, if you have to live in a small place, well, that just may be what you have to do. It's not a tragedy if your kids went from a house where they each had their own bedroom and now they need to share a bedroom. That was normal until, not that long ago. It was completely normal for siblings to share a bedroom. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's also nothing wrong with intergenerational living. Again, assuming that your extended family is safe and nearby, it can be a great solution, and it may not be the solution forever. I have seen situations where because they wanted the children to remain in the matrimonial home until they were a certain age, then one parent moved out and lived with family members for a while so that they could afford to keep paying the mortgage, and that the children could still stay in that house, and they made it work that way. Like you don't have to just go get your own place, and you don't have to live 100% separately. I think our society, as the economy is challenging for everyone, we are all charged with finding more creative solutions and leaning on each other. It's how things used to be, and I don't think it's a bad thing to have extended family and friends who operate like family to help you as you build your new life after divorce. It's what we should all strive for and expect for each other. Taking a quick pause in today's episode to remind you this podcast is built around your questions. If you're navigating divorce, separation, property division, child support, custody, co-parenting, blended families, or anything in between, you don't have to figure it out alone. Chances are, if you're wondering about something, someone else is too. You can submit your questions anytime through my website at hopefuldivorce.com. Whether it's a big, complicated situation or a simple, what does this legal term mean, or why does this happen this way? All questions are welcome. I read every submission, and your question could be featured in an upcoming episode to help not just you, but others going through similar experiences. So if something's been on your mind, send in your question. Let's keep the conversation moving forward. This question is from the Divorced Dads subreddit. I need advice on picking a lawyer. I'm in California and have been on the fence when it comes to picking a lawyer for divorce. Through my work, I have access to a program which has a network of lawyers I can call and get a free 30-minute consultation and 25% off the hourly rate for their services. I have reached out to 4 of these lawyers, but either have mixed online reviews or little to no reviews. The other option is lawyers on Yelp who have many reviews that they are mostly good, but they charge more money. So I was wondering, if you were in my situation, looking to divorce my wife, we have 2 kids, no property involved, mostly amicable, would you just go with a more affordable lawyer? Thank you. This is a great question. Choosing your lawyer is one of the most important decisions that you make in the divorce process. And it's not a simple thing because there's really not a good lawyer or a bad lawyer. It's more about what is the right lawyer for you. A lot of lawyers have very different approaches and styles and ways that they handle things. I first recommend that you ask your friends for their recommendations if they had a divorce lawyer. If there's a lawyer in your family or you know a lawyer, I would call them and ask who they recommend because lawyers tend to know lawyers and you might get a good recommendation that way. But beyond that, you kind of have to just decide for yourself what is the right fit for you. When you're looking at online reviews, it's important that you take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. So one of the things about family law is a lot of times a lawyer can get you the best outcome possible. They might get a settlement agreement, really is a good settlement agreement, but the client isn't happy with it because they wanted something else. But because of the way the laws are written and because of the way that the courts were, the terms that the lawyer got for you really are good, but you're just not happy with it. And those people tend to write really nasty reviews online when people are unhappy. So if you are going to look at the online reviews, I wouldn't just look at the number of stars that the lawyer has and dismiss them. I would go in and read those reviews. Read the really, the 5-star reviews and read the 1 and 2-star reviews and see what they're saying. Are they saying things like, I could never get a hold of the lawyer. I would leave message after message and nobody would return my call. I would send emails and they would just ignore me for weeks and weeks. Yeah, that would be a concern. They might be a good lawyer, but they might not be very good at managing their practice and they might not have very good customer service. I would look at those kinds of things. But if people are saying that they got a really bad result with the lawyer, those things are very complicated. And if people are saying they got a bad result, that lawyer may not have done anything wrong. That lawyer might have actually gotten them a really good result. You won't really know. So I would take those with a grain of salt. And then when you've done some research, you've gotten some recommendations, I would call the law firm and see what your experience is like with them. Do they answer their phone? Is there a live human who answers the phone? Do they ask a lot of good questions of you? You might not get a chance to talk to the lawyer right away, and it may take a few weeks to get an appointment. Good lawyers tend to be busy. The fact that it's going to take a while to get an appointment is not necessarily a bad thing. That's an indication that they've got a busy practice. So I wouldn't necessarily discount them if it takes a while, but if it's months before you can get in to see them, well, then, they just might be too busy for you. And that's okay. But you should be getting a prompt phone call back if you leave a message. And the person who calls you back should be helpful. And they should take down a lot of information from you. They should be asking questions about, how long you've been married. They should ask how many kids, the kid's date of birth. They should be asking you, a little bit of detailed information for the file. And the reason why that's good is it means that that lawyer is gathering information before they even meet with you. And they are going to, they're getting that information so that way you don't have to spend the first half hour of your appointment with the lawyer telling them everything. If it's already there on a sheet of paper and the clerk has already asked you all of this information and taken a lot of detailed notes, well, now your time with the lawyer where you're paying hundreds of dollars an hour is going to be a lot more, it's going to be a lot more efficient. And, if you were to call the firm, the law clerk or whoever you talk to, they should be able to give you a general idea of how the process works. They can't be giving you legal advice, and you may start to ask them questions and they'll say, you'll have to ask the lawyer about that. I'm not able to answer those kinds of questions. And you have to respect that. There are certain things that they can't tell you. But if they just say, talk to the lawyer, and they kind of don't give you any idea what to expect. And some firms are like that, where they don't want the law clerks hardly ever talking to the clients. They should be able to explain that, you're going to have to get your tax returns and kind of just general process of how things could go. And if you get a good feeling from this clerk that they seem to be, customer service oriented, that they're explaining things to you, just, generalities, that's a good sign, because you're going to be talking to the law clerk a lot. Often the lawyer is in court, the lawyer is in meetings. Often you talk to their law clerk or their paralegal more than you talk to the lawyer. So you should get a good feeling from them that they're polite and that they're customer service oriented and that they're friendly and that they're returning your calls, because you're going to spend a lot of time, communicating with them. They tend to get messages to the lawyer because the lawyer's in court. And so if you have a question and you want to know what's going on, you should be able to, reach out to the clerk and say, hey, is there any way you can, find this out for me? And they may have to schedule an appointment with the lawyer. They may not be able to get that question for you, but you should get a good feel from the law clerk that you're dealing with. That'll give you an indication if this firm is a good fit for you. And then when it comes to these legal services, it doesn't necessarily mean that the lawyers who come through a group benefit through your work are bad lawyers. That's not true at all. I have worked for lawyers who were part of a program where it was a union benefit. The members of this union could use certain lawyers and they would get 50% off. And it was a great deal. The lawyer liked it because they were getting paid by, this benefit, but the clients also paid. It was a good deal. And this was a great experienced lawyer who had been practicing for a long time. And it was just one of the ways that he kind of considered it marketing, that, working with these companies that offer discounted legal services. So it does not necessarily mean that they're not good lawyers, just because they're through a program. So contact your work and see if there is a program where you can get a discount, because often those things, can be a really good deal. It still gets down to the individual lawyer, and if that individual lawyer is a good fit for you, no matter whether it's going through a program or whether it's just someone that you're finding online, you should vet them, and and it's just a process that you go through to finding the right match. Which lawyer has the level of customer service? Which one has the approach that's a good fit for you? And you have to just do a little bit of research on your own, because it is a very important decision for you to make.
Thanks for listening to The Hopeful Divorce. If this episode was helpful to you, share it with someone who might need it, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And as you deal with challenges of separation, divorce, and rebuilding your life, always remember the wise words that Christopher Robin told his friend Winnie the Pooh. You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep moving forward.